Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Liam Dann, New Zealand Herald Business Editor at Large. This is a podcast where we talk to New Zealanders about money and how it has shaped their lives. We're not going to tell you how to get rich, we're not going to tell you what happens next with interest rates, but we are going to get you thinking about your relationship with money and what it really means to you. With me today I have Kerre McIvor, a familiar face and voice for New Zealanders through her many roles on TV, radio and in print. Hi Kerre.
Hi there, I'm glad we're not telling people how to get rich because I wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah, some of these things we put a disclaimer, not to take this stuff as financial advice.
No.
I think you can take that as read with these podcasts. So look, thanks for being here. Just interested to chat about money in your life really, and I wondered about starting at the beginning if... what would be, is there an earliest memory you have of physically having money in your life?
Oh, yes. I had a paper run when I was in Waihi. The Waihi Gazette came out every Wednesday, so I delivered that. And I also worked in a milk bar when I was 12, and Nambassa was on. And we were very big on the milkshakes for the hungry hippies as they came back after a weekend of dope smoking. There was... and I remember the first thing I bought was a first aid kit, of all things. But then I saved up to be able to hire a horse for the week during the school holidays. And I loved having the ability to be able to select what I wanted to buy and to be able to pay for it myself.
Having that freedom, having that control of money. Growing up, was money, did you feel like you were in a sort of a comfortable environment with money in your household?
Yeah, I think so. It was 70s New Zealand, so everybody was pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Nobody was ostentatiously rich or poor. We went to Fiji when I was 9, which was something not many kids did.
It would have been quite exotic, quite a big deal at that time.
It was a big deal, and I loved that. Dad grew up very poor, and he was born in a depression work camp, and he became a bank manager for the security that it provided the family, and he loved being able to pay bills on time and to look after us and give us the treats that he didn't enjoy.
Yeah, I think a lot of older New Zealanders, that depression, war and post-war period really affected their attitude to money. And I guess, now it still has an impact through the kids that, growing up, my father as well, it's not showering for too long and turning all the lights off because to save the power and those sort of things. They were pretty normal habits, even if you were reasonably well off in New Zealand in those days.
And even if you did have a lot of money in New Zealand in the 70s, you couldn't buy a lot because there wasn't a lot to buy, and what there was expensive. So you couldn't go to Superette as a young girl and buy 4 or 5 dresses. You saved and saved and saved and bought one because they were made here and they were expensive.
Yeah. Do you remember that changing in the 80s? I mean, I know,
oh God, yes, it was so much fun.
that kind of 84 and the shackles come off and people had the stock market boomed and all that sort of stuff.
Oh gosh, yes. And champagne was $19 a bottle, and I am by nature a spender. I see it as my God-given duty to dispense with money as quickly as it comes into me.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Waihi Gazette. So you've been in the media since the beginning.
As a delivery girl.
Yeah.
No, I had my first poem published by the New Zealand Herald when I was 6, I think, in the Christmas holiday period. Oh. So yes, I've been a published author.
That's interesting. And so
6.
seeing your byline in print, there's something to that, isn't there? But, and then this is a bit of a cliche, I guess, but they say you don't go into journalism for the money. And so the direction your career went obviously wasn't, you didn't set out to get rich.
No, I just loved I did love the lifestyle though. It was a fun lifestyle, and when I worked for television, I was on Fair Go when I was 21, and presenters didn't get paid presenters' pay. I was a J2 journalist with only a couple of years' experience. You were still on that
award scale.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I didn't have a presenter's salary, but I lived this life where I could whistle up a helicopter or charter a yacht, if it was to get to a story or to illustrate a story. And then my peers, we lunched a lot. We only worked about 6 months of the year and didn't work the other 6. You just had to go out and fill out your timesheet. So it was a champagne lifestyle on a very, very bare income.
Yeah. So you got into a pretty high profile journalism position pretty young. Was there a bit Was there a sort of a bit in between where you were, the poor student and all that sort of stuff? What's the poorest that you remember being, I guess?
Oh, when I was a single mum and waitressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was front of house in hospo, and I'd have to go down and get my tips from the night before so I could buy Kate's school lunch, or, I remember using rolled oats to eke out the mince to make the meatballs, and I learnt all the tricks of the trade of how to. But that was just poor decision making on my part. Yeah. It really was. So I'd still buy Bollinger champagne. Yeah,
and then you'd have to compensate with the
Yeah, my child would have to suffer by eating rolled oats in the mince. She's done okay. But I've always worked, always. And even when I was a journalism student, I worked at a fish and chip shop, which I hated because it all got through your hair.
Oh, yeah.
I worked as a house cleaner in Wadestown, and I worked at the Prince Regent as well. So I did a couple of jobs because I bought the opium perfume and the opium puff powder thing, which was all the go back then. And I like beautiful things, and I like being able to provide them for myself.
Yeah.
And for my daughter and now grandchildren.
Well, and it sounds like when it comes to money, it's about, I guess, rather than big assets, you seem to be more interested in what it can allow you to enjoying life around you, right?
Well, now more so than ever with COVID. I'm glad that we spent so much money on travel with the children based in the Northern Hemisphere. It meant that, we travelled to Italy and to France and rented a great big chateau with a swimming pool and a tennis court, and Kate's dad and her, her other mother, her stepmother, and Tom and me, and this huge big extended.
You did it basically.
Mended, blended, extended family. Just had this wonderful 2.5 weeks with the grandchild, and it was just magic. And Italy last year we rented a villa there, and it was expensive, and it's money that's gone. Yeah. But those memories, and I'm so glad I have them now.
Yeah, I mean, has COVID, now that you can't do that sort of thing, has COVID changed the way you're handling money and what you're doing with your money?
Well, my income has dropped by a third because of COVID. Thank God for News Talk ZB. Otherwise,
yes.
Otherwise, I don't know what I'd be doing, because it really did knock me back on my heels, because I'd always thought that I had sufficient strands to what I did, like with the emceeing, with the writing, with the radio, that I'd be able to at least rely on something if the worst happened. And as it turned out, I did. But my other one, going back into hospo, that was stuffed too. So everything I kind of can do wasn't really there for me. So that really did set me back.
Yeah, there is that thought that journalists have, when it was all going down and it was sort of zombie apocalypse level stuff, it's like, what do I do in there?
Yeah, I've got no practical skills,
There's only room for one storyteller around the campfire.
Can I retrain as a welder? Can I retrain as something practical?
Yeah, but I guess, in realistic sense, that the live gigs, for example, would have dropped away immediately.
I had something like, I tried to just do one a month because I find them quite tiring, but that helps replant the trees up in the Hokianga property we have, and that vanished. I had 12 to 13 booked in February, and then they were gone.
Yeah.
Magazines were gone, now they're back.
Wanted to ask people on this podcast, what was perhaps the most indulgent purchase you've ever made, and perhaps the worst financial decision you've ever made?
So many. When I was first given a TVNZ credit card, when I was 18, I went out and bought an Oroton leather bag and went to El Casino, and I shouted everybody.
Those were the days of public broadcast.
And then I had to pay it back, and it was something like $5,000, and I was only earning $200 a week or something. I'm like, I've got no idea how I'm going to pay this back. I'm hopeless. My poor father, as a bank manager, at one point too, I was writing out checks that I couldn't pay, and to me it still seems a miracle. You can just scrawl some figures in your signature on a piece of paper and hand it over, and people give you stuff. And so my checkbook was confiscated by the bank manager, and I had to go in and ask for a check, and then they'd hand it to me, and they had to approve the purchase basically. And then at Christmas I came away and went home to Hamilton, and I took my checkbook with me. The bank manager wasn't there, but the assistant gave it to me because I needed something to live on while I was away. There weren't FPOS cards back then. And Dad came home at lunchtime and said, all going well in Wellington, is it, love? And I'm like, yeah, no, great, Dad. And he goes, everything okay? Yeah, good. Explain this then. And italics had gone out to every national bank in the country saying, if this woman comes into your bank, sees her checkbook immediately, she's not supposed to have it. And I read that, and poor Dad, because everybody in the National Bank knew him.
So your dad was a bank manager?
Was a bank manager.
Right. So he
Oh, it was horrific.
Oh, my goodness.
And then I was looking for something, I was 5'4", well-groomed, pleasantly spoken, and I was like, well, that's flattering.
Yeah.
No. So, yeah, I've made some
So has he tried over the years to give you...
No, because he's a profligate. Well, when he was alive, he wanted to be profligate too.
Yeah.
But it was just his nature was to be extravagant, but his experience had shaped him to be prudent.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
he wanted to be extravagant. Dad died at 58, and he had played by the rules and he'd done everything right, and even though it was against his nature, occasionally buy something extravagant for Mum for her birthday. And then he was dead at 58. And they were going to save up, and they were going to travel, and they were going to do all these amazing things once he'd retired. Yeah. So I think a big part of the way I live has been informed by that.
Yeah.
What is the point?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's and look, this is what I fight against myself, is like, enjoy it, try and enjoy it, because you're not saving for a, it's not a finish line. No,
and to have Bart's first experience of learning how to swim in Otranto with him running into me in the water of this beautiful little bay, and him being weightless for the first time and kicking over to me, that I hope will be flashing through my mind on my deathbed, whenever that may be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times people, there's what we want, how we want to sort of live our life around money, and then there's just how we naturally feel like doing it. I have to work harder to spend money.
Really?
I'm just really,
yeah.
Even now you get a bit more comfortable and you realise that you can buy this thing or do this thing, and you're still sort of at the supermarket sort of, I think I'll always be shopping at Pack and Save, whatever happens. I can't imagine.
Well, I just see it as just, it's just a means to an end. Yeah. It's neither here nor there. And because I have been poor, it doesn't really matter. The thrill of being able to... I had a little ceremony that I used to do when I got the job at News Talk ZB. So I went from being a maitre d' to a homeowner and with a regular income. And every Sunday I'd sit down and I'd pour a nice glass of wine and I'd write out my checks, and they'd be paid on time, and that, to me, that I still get a real kick out of that. Yeah. Where I don't feel sick if the car makes a funny noise or... Well,
that's right. That is a kind of sense of how you define wealth, is just not having to worry if the fridge breaks down. And I remember that growing up, and that sense, just having that buffer. So when I get asked a lot about financial advice and things, I try not to give real financial advice, but to me, having your affairs in such an order that you can sleep at night and that you're living your life without worrying about money is probably the best pieces of advice you can sort of give.
And also to understand that it's just a means to an end. It's not the end goal. Like, having a lot of money, so what? Yeah. If your family aren't talking to you, or you don't have your health, and I know it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, it doesn't matter.
It's not a score sheet.
No. And after Christchurch, I went home and looked at all the stuff we had at home and thought, does any of it matter? Really?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. There's very little.
Yeah. I mean, are you someone who's got, there's all these personal finance rules about, do you have, you don't have to get too detailed about your personal finances in this, but have you got things structured in a sensible manner that, personal finance experts Mary Holm would agree with, that kind of thing?
No, because I don't even know how much I earn.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to tell you what my salary was, which is a luxury, I suppose. Mind you, I didn't even know what I was earning back when I was a waitress.
It's either enough or it's not.
Yeah, exactly. I've got KiwiSaver, and a clever young friend of ours used the equity in the house we bought in Greyland. That was probably the best buy we made. I mean, it was only what we could afford. Yeah. We didn't know Greyland was going to be fashionable.
No.
So that was sensible. And for a while there, it was tight, making those mortgage payments. So we didn't go out for coffees anymore, and we did all the traditional things that people do.
To cover the mortgage until it's under control.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
And then a clever friend of ours used that equity to buy an investment property, and we bought the Hokianga. And I thought that was just going to be a bottomless pit into which we sunk money.
Yeah.
But and really, it's not a for-profit thing.
No, it's
my
part of your lifestyle, I guess.
Yeah, it's a sanctuary. Yeah, so I guess that's sensible. It hasn't all been holidays and champagne, but man, I'm glad I did. I do not regret for one wild second any of the silly, impulsive fun I've had with money.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because you could play it absolutely safe with money your entire life and end up with a nice big bank balance when you're lying on the deathbed. And is that really going to be? Maybe it is. Maybe there are some people who for that is
what they like.
The
to
security,
have.
But the memories that it creates. I guess I didn't really get started with money until the end of my 20s because I spent my 20s travelling and spending too much money and getting into student debt and things. But I don't regret that either. I mean, it helped form who I am, and it's probably helped tangentially in some of the things I'm doing now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there were some things I'm glad I didn't do. Like when I was in Paris, I saw some Bulgari earrings in this very plooty jewellery store, and we still had some money left over from the budget I had to redo the house, do the renos on this old Greyland cottage. There was money left over. So I rang Tom and said, I've seen the most amazing earrings, and he wasn't interested at all until he could hear in my tone.
Yeah.
And he said, how much are they? And I said, they're ridiculously expensive. And he said, well, how much? And I said, 10,000 euro. And there was this pause, and he said, well, get them. You deserve them. And I'm like, are you mad? That's a ridiculous amount of money. He said, no, get them. You absolutely deserve to have them. And I was like, we haven't got that money. He said, there's money in the account from the renos. Buy them. I'm like, no, I cannot believe you're being that irresponsible, and hung up. He played me like a trout.
So you didn't get them?
No, I didn't get them.
But it was a win-win for him.
Yes. Because he said later when we discussed it that he thought, is she gone completely nuts? She'll lose them the first time she wears them. But he said, I can't tell her no otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. Well played.
Well played.
Yeah. Look, you obviously in your job get feedback from people all around the country about what's happening with the economy and all that sort of stuff. So when you look at your own experience and you hear a lot about young people struggling to get into the housing market and all that sort of stuff, what sort of advice can you give them? I mean, do you?
Absolutely none. I was so lucky. So lucky to get a good job with a regular income. When I met Tom, he had a rental property in Christchurch, and we were able to use that as security to get into the house in Greyland. It was pure luck, not sensible, sound financial management on my part at all. So I would never presume to lecture. And what really worries me is that, I'll be able to help my daughter and son-in-law and the grandkids get a home.
Yeah.
And it's just going to make it more and more difficult, for those who haven't got that parental support. What do they do? You know, I mean, lots of kids do. I've heard some amazing young people who have worked incredibly hard, and KiwiSaver's been a boon for that.
Yeah.
And they are getting into homes in their 20s.
But they're having to make choices, aren't they, about those 20s? They're not having those freewheeling 20s. They're sort of having...
I didn't have freewheeling 20s because I was a mum.
Yeah.
And again, it's just the choices you make and...
Yeah.
And... Yeah, what goes along. I mean, we all end up. I remember my former colleague Mark Dye saying to me that a lecturer told him, we all end up roughly at the same place at 60 odd,
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
There or thereabouts.
If you've done a few of the basic things right, we trust that society will look after us to some extent.
But I also do, like, any time I've been poor, it's entirely through my actions and my decisions. It's never been because I've had a head injury or because fate has been unkind or I've been in an abusive relationship. Never, ever like that.
Yeah.
So I really do worry and can only imagine how tough it is when you're in a situation not of your making, where that sick feeling in your stomach happens when the car... Yeah. Even if you've got a car or, like as you say, the washing machine, or when you can't feed your kids properly, that that's sick making.
Yeah, I can imagine. But, it is, when you talk about, there is a mindset there that you aren't blaming anyone other than yourself when you've got into these situations.
There's no one else to blame. Nope, yeah. I've looked long and hard. Nope, it's just that person in the mirror staring back at me.
And maybe it is through the force of nature or personality pushing your career along, but you've had this success. So you think there's something, what do you think that has driven you to sort of have that kind of success? So it's tangentially made you financially, comfortable, but it's not been the driver.
Oh gosh, no, that was purely incidental.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just very, very grateful. When I got my 20 years at NZME, I sent a bottle of champagne round to my old boss, who'd hired me in the first place, and I thanked him for giving me the job, and the job gave me the opportunity to put my daughter through university and, to buy a home of my own. We were never interested in a flash house. When the house prices started going through the roof, friends were saying, "Oh, sell the cottage and buy something bigger," and I'm like, but why?
Yeah.
We're really happy here, and we don't need a big flash house or a big flash car.
You get to the point where you've a financial expert would say, look, you've got this much equity, you could be making that work for you, but
no, we're not. I'm not really interested.
No desire to be a landlord, particularly.
No, none.
One thing I am wanting to ask people is what they think. If you had all the power, if you, I guess if you were Jacinda Ardern's position or Grant Robertson's position, although it's not that easy, but but if you were able to wave a magic wand, is there something you think that could change in society that would maybe help people with money?
I remember Ollie Newland, the property developer, saying back in the 70s, because he had a really hands-on relationship, or he knew his renters really well, his tenants well, he would do a rent to buy for those he saw were young families or struggling, and so he would do a rent to buy, and I'd just love to see that happen for young people. They can afford the rent. They just can't afford to get that deposit together. I could afford the rent, but until Tom came along with that rental property, I couldn't have got the deposit together either. And knowing my personality as I do, I doubt I'd have assiduously stashed money away until that nest egg was there.
Yeah.
So
something that gave people that pathway to some,
because they can service the debt. It's just that lump sum.
Yeah. I mean, we are a society that's a bit, obsessed with money, I guess. But I mean, it's not.
We're not obsessed with money. I don't think we're not. It's not like an American thing where your wealth is your. Yeah, there's a lot of quiet money in this country.
Yeah, I mean, New Zealanders aren't traditionally particularly flashy. I mean, there is a bit of it around. Yeah, a bit of that around, and a bit of certain parts of Auckland. But culturally, when you look at New Zealand, and we don't celebrate it quite the same way either. I mean, in America, it is seen as a badge of honour being a millionaire or a billionaire, and we're a bit suspicious, I suppose, of people in New Zealand if they sort of seem to be too overtly rich.
Well, I mean, look at Graham Hart. Yeah. One of the quietest men and one of the quietest families. They do so much for charity that nobody ever hears about, and a lot of our wealthy families do. They're huge. It's always the same old names and the same old checkbooks that come out. They do a hell of a lot. But it is done quietly, not with the beating of drums. He's a good example, actually. He hasn't. I haven't talked to him for years, but he used to talk to me many, many years ago, and he said to me, it's never been about counting the money for him. He just happens to love doing business, and he always wants to do the best possible business deal and so on, and that's his passion. He said, we don't play a lot of golf. And entrepreneurs are like that too, aren't they? They just, like the win. Yeah, that's right. And so I can see the satisfaction that comes with, doing business and money. Often these people see money as a byproduct. Yeah. And then there are other entrepreneurs, and I guess we don't need to name any names, where it does seem to be all about that lifestyle and showing off. And some of them who have come a cropper recently. Yeah, some of them in jail. Yeah. What do you get asked financial advice from people? Do you ever get? So people don't, anybody would have to meet me for about 10 minutes and know that I was not the person to ask. So you don't get the questions that I get at every barbecue about what's going to happen to interest rates or what's going to happen to the dollar. So that's nice. It is nice. It's really nice. Gosh, it must be like being a gynecologist for you. God. No, I don't get asked that at all. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No.
And do you worry about those things? Or is
No.
that when you look at sort of the economic stories, because we talk about economics on the radio sometimes, and it's more the interest in the way that the world's unfolding that drives your...
And it's more the next generation I worry about, because we sold the house in Greylin recently. I don't have to live in Auckland, you know, apart from the job. And if the job ended tomorrow, then I'd go north, and I don't need a lot. And I know what I need now. I love all the flashy trappings that come with having a disposable income, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I'm at my happiest, you know, when I'm on the beach.
Yeah. And interestingly, I notice as you get older and you have a few more financial choices, you have that freedom, but
you limit yourself.
Yeah, and often a lot of times I hear from people, and you probably hear from them on the show, you know, who are very, very worried about it, all this minute detail of the financial world and things. And I'm writing about it, so I'm sort of perpetuating that a bit. But I sort of feel like saying, but you're all right. You know, don't take it so emotionally, because you've got that freedom. You've reached a certain age. You know,
you're fine.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and yes, I mean, if you're happy in yourself lying on the beach, it's nice to have a nice place to go back to have a shower and a drink on the deck. But you know,
it just can be as basic as, and it doesn't have to be anywhere flash or fashionable, or you know, if you're happy in yourself and you've got your family around you, I think your family's your wealth more than anything. And then if you've got enough to pay the bills, that's a recipe for a really happy life.
Yeah. That sounds like a nice place to wrap it up, Kerre. A recipe for a happy life. Look, thanks for talking. I think, I don't know whether people will have got financial advice out of this, but I think it's an interesting way to think about money in your life and just to enjoy it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for talking about money and your life.
It's my absolute pleasure, Liam.
Cheers. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you've got any feedback, do drop me a line at liam.dan@nzherald.co.nz and listen out for our next episode.